Mortal Kombat's 2021 reboot was something, wasn't it? But before that was even a thing, before even Mortal Kombat Legacy was a thing, we had Mortal Kombat Conquest, a live-action show from the late 90s. It punched, it kicked, and it made its way onto late-night television. It was everything you wanted: blood, thunder, and Raiden in a trench coat. But then it vanished. There was no closure, no finale. It simply left fans confused and disappeared from existence. So you gotta wonder, what happened? Why did the show just go away on a cliffhanger? Well, that's what we're going to look into in today's video. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
In each of us, there burns a soul of a warrior. In every generation.
When the show debuted in October 1998, the franchise was still a hot topic. It was riding the dragon-shaped wave. The original Mortal Kombat movie had just hit the theaters 3 years ago, and it was successful, especially for a video game adaptation. So Threshold Entertainment, the production house behind the movie, saw an opportunity and decided to take it. They wanted to expand the universe into smaller screens. And not just in any TV format. No. They wanted a live-action, serialized martial arts drama that would leave everyone hankering for more. They joined hands with Juan Carlos Cotto, the writer and showrunner of Miami Vice and Martial Law, to bring this beast of a show to life. After all, Mortal Kombat Conquest was not going to be a rehash of the tournament setup from the games. It was going to be a deep dive into the lore of the franchise, leaving no stones unturned. The story starts off long before Liu Kang started bicycle kicking people in the face. Our protagonist for this show is Kung Lao. No, not the one we know so well. The ancestor of our Kung Lao is also named Kung Lao. So this Kung Lao is a previous Earthrealm champion who had defeated the forces of Outworld in the Mortal Kombat tournament. This Kung Lao, played by Paulo Montalban, was more than just a warrior, he was a leader. He was given the task of protecting the Earthrealm, and he had to train the next generation of defenders to stop the Dark Realms from ever gaining power and invading Earth again. And to help him achieve that, we had two very original characters. A disgraced bodyguard who could punch through anything named Zero, played by real-life martial artist Daniel Bernhardt, and an ex-thief with a heart of gold named Taja, played by Kristana Loken, who most of you know from Terminator 3. These three set up shop in this mystic and weird fight club and bizarre hybrid headquarters and got to business. They got into all kinds of shenanigans that you can expect to come with this line of work. But they were not alone. You see, they were constantly monitored and sometimes even manipulated by none other than the God of Thunder, Raiden. This Raiden, played by Jeffrey Meek, was everything. He had this deadpan snark, which made Christopher Lambert's Raiden seem Shakespearean. And of course, how can we forget? We also got Shang Tsung back. Still as backstabbing and smarmy as ever, this character was one of the show's main antagonists. The show was somewhat like a mix of martial arts soap opera and gladiator tales when it came to tonality. Kind of like Xena Warrior Princess, but with more soul-stealing. This world was filled with weekly fight sequences, shady elders, inter-realm politics, and warlords. All fan-favorite characters like Noob Saibot, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Reptile, and Quan Chi made their appearance one by one, making it clear how badly this show wanted to remain connected with the video game roots while also expanding its mythos. But that's not what makes the show special.
Choosing, but know this, you will die.
What makes it special is that, despite coming out when it did, it tried to be something more. Something more than just being one of those typical violent shows with one-on-one brawls coming one after the other. It leaned into narrative world building. It offered fans an early look into the lore that we saw fleshed out in later games like Deception and Deadly Alliance. Anything you wanted to know, rival realms, elder gods, politics of the Outworld, Conquest covered it all. And they did it with smoke machines and set pieces that definitely look like they were borrowed from a theme park stunt show. Speaking of which, Let me tell you where this series was shot. This series was actually shot in the Disney MGM studios in Orlando. This was the biggest cost-saving move they could have made, because thanks to that, they got access to existing sets and a decent-sized production structure, both of which are important for the making of a somewhat good-looking show. It was syndicated by Warner Brothers and was aired across various local stations. Then, TNT picked it up and gave it a home next to WCW Monday Nitro. And this placement was no coincidence either. WCW Monday Nitro was a wrestling show. So all the audiences of that show were already prepped for the chaos Conquest brought by the time it started airing. And for fans who decided to watch it in real time, it was a magical experience for them. I mean, it wasn't super great, you know? It had a mid-sized budget to begin with, but it tried really hard to mean something. And sometimes that's more than enough to leave a mark on people. The lore was ambitious, and the characters were earnest. Its aesthetic was everything the 90s had to offer, with a side of fireballs. But the hero is always tested by forces greater than him, isn't he? Much like Kung Lao, this show was also tested a lot. Let's get into that now. There is no denying that Mortal Kombat Conquest had style, spunk, and everything you could want from a Mortal Kombat-related show. But it had a major problem. It was too expensive for its own good. The production values of the series were much better than most of the syndicated action series that were on at that time, but the bills for that were too steep. And producers simply could not maintain that for long. The first design had beautiful, elaborate sets, fight choreography, practical effects, creature makeup, costumes, and a lot of wire usage. These were ambitious choices which definitely demanded serious dollars. Joshua Wexler even confirmed in later interviews that the production budget for the show quickly ballooned beyond original estimates. So as the episodes went on, cost-cutting became super important. Recycled set pieces, fewer effects used in magic duels, fewer extras, and tighter shot compositions. You know the deal. Everything that they could do to stretch out the show's dollar further. But with the world that they created, cutting corners meant the series started losing its spark, and it did so really quickly. And don't forget, production expenses are not the only ones. Distribution costs are also a thing. Conquest was syndicated, which means it did not belong to one single network. Any network could air it out whenever it wanted, and that resulted in really inconsistent timing. This understandably made it hard for the show to build up a reliable fandom. Luckily, TNT got the rights to it and gave the series a temporary home. And putting it right after WCW Monday Nitro was a smart move because the spillovers, despite not being too much, were more than enough to give structure to the fandom. And the reviews and ratings were not bad at all. They were actually pretty solid for the first year. However, a solid rating does nothing when its budget is bleeding out faster than Cage's ego. Wexler and his team had long-term plans. They had story arcs plotted that would last them at least 3 seasons. Character developments were already planted in the earlier episodes, implying greater twists down the line. So when the first season ends on a cliffhanger, it's not a shock tactic, it makes complete sense. It was a part of a broader roadmap, and that cliffhanger was the right moment to stop the story and let the fans effectively marinate and speculate about the future. And they were sure they would have a season 2, so there's no issue, right? But that's where the problem lies. You see, syndication economics was unforgiving. With no centralized network to absorb or offset the losses with the ever-ballooning budget, Warner Brothers and Threshold found themselves backed in a corner. They couldn't find any additional finances to back their show so that it could continue on the existing scale. And TNT was not ready to back up this martial arts-focused TV show when they could see that sports and original dramas had broader appeal, according to their numbers. And to make things even worse, the genre of cable TV started to shift. The martial arts TV boom happened in the early 90s, with shows like Hercules and Highlander the series. But now, they were slowing down. They were getting replaced with supernatural and sci-fi dramas like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and The X-Files. So in that landscape, Conquest started to look extremely out of place. Initially, everyone knew that the budget was not sustainable. According to production commentary, the later episodes of Season 1 even adjusted plot lines to accommodate a simpler setting. The world-expanding mythology that was promised to us became an alleyway brawl instead of being this spectacle that was both mythical and scary. Despite knowing all of that, the cast and crew gave it their all. Kristanna Loken brought charm and charisma to the screen, while Daniel Bernhardt left everyone in awe with his martial arts credentials. Jeffrey Meek's dual role was memorable, and at the center of all of that, you had Paulo Montalban giving us a stoic intensity that bound it all together. And then came the killing blow. Cancellation. By the time 1999 rolled around, Conquest had quite a little fan club going for it. It performed well in its initial US run, and it did even better in its international markets in the UK and Australia. But out of nowhere, right before the second season could be greenlit, the show was axed. There was no warning, no campaign for renewal, no press tour. The show simply disappeared like it never existed in the first place. And that's what's so strange about it. The show had all these hallmarks of a niche success. It had brand recognition. It had a built-in fan base. It even had the prime cable slot, giving it solid exposure. So you gotta wonder why it got canceled. And that is where the truth comes out. This was a case of fiscal paralysis. And now, with no one budgeting the second season, there was no way it was going to happen. So without the second season to follow, the fans were left in complete shock. The tonal whiplash of watching the entire cast wiped out in one episode was a gut punch for the viewers, especially for the ones who had invested in the story's mythology. Some even thought that the second season was simply delayed, while others assumed it was a mid-season break. But no. The show was already dead, and no matter how much fans begged for it to come back, it was not going to return. A lot of fans feel like this abrupt ending was the most frustrating example of cliffhanger cancellations in television history. There was nothing left for you to salvage. Nothing that the audience could use to feel better and give the show a proper goodbye. Just 22 episodes and bloodied fan expectations here. But despite being shelved, Mortal Kombat Conquest was not forgotten. It just entered the weird cultural limbo where it was too weird to rerun, too obscure to trend, but too integral to Mortal Kombat mythos to be forgotten entirely. Since we're on the topic, let's talk about the reception of this show. To say that the reception of Mortal Kombat Conquest was mixed would be like saying Sub-Zero is a little chilly. Everyone who watched the show, whether it was casual viewers, critics, or fans, had vastly different takes on the show. And the takes were varied from one extreme to the next. Let's start with the good. Genre fans and Mortal Kombat loyalists both agreed that Conquest was very authentic. The show genuinely tried to explore the deeper lore of the franchise. Long before that, video game adaptations were a trend. Raiden, Shang Tsung, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and Quan Chi were recognizable and faithfully adapted from the source material in terms of design and mythology, which also earns them a few brownie points. Unlike other contemporaries, Mortal Kombat Conquest did not try to water down the source material so that it could appeal to non-fans. It doubled down on everything. And yes, that includes the early signs of the Lin Kuei and Shirai Ryu feud. The fight choreography of the show was also another aspect of the show that a lot of fans liked and appreciated. Daniel Bernhardt was a trained martial artist, so his scenes looked quite legit. Jeffrey Meek, on the other hand, gave us stellar work in his dual roles, completely blending into each character and giving them added nuance and presence. The practical work and the wire work of the show may look a little dated, but for 90s standards, they did wonderfully well, and they were quite ambitious. Now, let's come to the not-so-good bits. One of the most common critiques among both the viewers and reviewers was the acting. The acting was uneven, to say the least. Some of the main cast carried their roles with conviction, while other cast members struggled with the melodramatic line delivery and clunky dialogue. Kristanna Loken's Taja is charming, but she is inconsistent in her delivery. Paulo Montalban's Kung Lao was noble, but he was too stoic at times, making it difficult to fully engage with him emotionally. Some of it could be because of the script itself. It was always swinging violently between one-liner camp and mythological exposition, which meant that the actors had very little tonal consistency to work with anyway. And then you have the writing. From that aspect, it was clear that the show was following a narrative pattern. Whether that was intentional or unintentional, we don't know. But once you see the pattern, it becomes extremely hard to ignore it. The pattern goes somewhat like this. Kung Lao and his crew come across a threat. They learn this vague lesson about destiny or thrust. Then they fight the threat and survive until the next villain shows up. This Monster of the Week formula definitely kept the casual viewers hooked, but it also made the character arcs that we were dying to see develop rather slow, until it was almost too late. The visuals of the show were also split. Sets were practical and atmospheric, but the costuming failed. Some of the costumes, especially for the Outworld-based villains, came off as low-budget cosplay instead of epic fantasy. The costume designs for Kriya and Reptile looked more suited for a kid's Halloween special episode than a martial arts epic. That also meant that their designs undermined their intended menace, making it hard to take the villains seriously. Speaking of which, the costuming of Shao Kahn and Quan Chi always received praise from the audience because they at least attempted to look menacing despite the constraints of the TV budget. And because the show tried, despite all of its shortcomings, it managed to find an audience who loved it. There is a reason why this show is still being discussed in forums and retrospectives on YouTube, even though it's been more than 2 decades. This show inspired fan fictions and character spin-off ideas, including crossover dreamcasting back then, which you would know was a huge thing because that was not at all the standard fandom behavior back then. In particular, fans grew attached to the trio of Kung Lao, Taja, and Zero. It's not like they were flawless or anything, but their chemistry was flawed, funny, and endearing, which made this show feel more grounded and real. This show was Mortal Kombat with heart. And you could say, in a way, the flaws of this show became a part of its charm. The melodrama, the slow-motion fights, the campy tone. All of it is a nostalgic time capsule that catered to fans who were hungry for any and every kind of Mortal Kombat content when the franchise had its more dormant years. This show was not high art, but it was sincere. And this sincerity is the main reason why the show has a cult status. Unlike the modern adaptations, which try to be gritty and cinematic, Mortal Kombat Conquest was unapologetically itself. It was silly, earnest, and even brave. It did not hold back or apologize. It was what it was, and it was the most chaotic, boldest, and weirdest live-action adaptation in gaming history. After Mortal Kombat Conquest vanished from television, you'd think that this show would be forgotten, but it lingered. It was passed down by old VHS collectors, burned onto DVD-Rs, and eventually uploaded in fragments onto YouTube. Over time, not only did the fans celebrate and remember this show, but they also missed it. This show dared to do something different. It focused on everything around the edges in the Mortal Kombat universe. Sure, the tournaments are there, but what happens after the tournament ends? Who protects the Earthrealm when no battle is happening around? These questions have come up in fan discussions time and time again, but they were never explored in the games. This show, however, did it. And because they explored these very natural and often asked questions, the series felt like a genuine expansion of the Mortal Kombat mythos. Conquest was one of the first adaptations to flesh out the concept of inter-realm politics, something that we will see return in later games. The power plays between Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, and Shao Kahn, along with the Elder Gods, added complexity to what was previously understood as a simple good versus evil scene. We were also introduced to characters and ideas that were not canon at the time in the show. For example, take the episode where we meet Kriya, the queen of a hive-like race of warrior women from another realm. She never appeared in the games directly, but the conception of warring realms beyond Outworld and Edenia ended up helping the franchise's expanding multiverse. Similarly, the early takes on the Shirai Ryu and Lin Kuei feud also added more layers to the rivalry that we know became a core of the series. Even the portrayal of Kung Lao as a tragic hero who didn't necessarily win every fight was an intelligent and ahead of its time take. This allowed us to understand that there were stakes beyond who could punch the hardest. We were given character dimensions and internal conflicts that the future games later tap into. And because of all these reasons, and many more, fans never moved on. Even to this day, you can see people talking about the show online. Fan fictions, Reddit threads, you name it, it's there. Conquest lives on because it tried something that no one else did. On paper, it's clear that this show had everything going for it that would eventually get a reboot. I mean, we are in the golden age of franchise reboots, aren't we? Streamers are mining every corner for content, and Mortal Kombat itself has been revived multiple times. Whether it's the 2011 Legacy series or the 2021 feature film, you gotta wonder, why not Conquest? Well, that's where the mess sets in. There is a convoluted combination of genre fatigue, rights issues, outdated syndication models, and franchise direction shifts. We already know what happened with TNT and the budget, but what happened after that was the tonal whiplash course of the Mortal Kombat brand itself. After the TV show came out, the franchise went through a transformation. Deadly Alliance and Deception both pushed the lore further, but added more compelling storytelling. Then the 2011 Mortal Kombat reboot, MK9, came into being. That restructured the entire timeline completely, and Conquest's events were no longer canon. And the newer adaptations, like Legacy, gave realism instead of fantasy melodrama. These steps were deliberately taken so that the franchise could leave behind the campiness of the past adaptation. And yes, Conquest is one of the adaptations the franchise wanted nothing to do with. And even though the fans remembered, Threshold Entertainment, the production house that originally produced the series, moved away from live-action television. Warner Brothers, on the other hand, after acquiring the broader MK rights, decided to focus on feature films and games instead of niche TV revivals. So rebooting Conquest would require a lot of untangling of syndication contracts, licensing agreements, and actor residuals. And that seems like a lot of work for a show that was not as impactful as, let's say, Friends. The political factors also didn't help. You see, after the events like Columbine in the 2000s, networks became more sensitive to violent content. Networks simply did not want to promote a show that involved fighting. So, if Conquest had existed, it would have faced scrutiny and censorship, and it probably would have gone through a tone adjustment despite the wishes of the public and the creators. In the following years since then, Mortal Kombat has made several returns to the screen, but none of them were like Conquest. Neither Legacy nor the 2021 reboot acknowledged the lore threads of Conquest or the trio, Kung Lao, Zero, and Taja. Still, despite all of that, fans haven't let go. Fan campaigns pop up every few years, asking for a Conquest revival. Whether it's a Blu-ray release, comic continuation, or YouTube mini-docs, they aren't picky. Even the new fans who come across this show say the same thing. This show is flawed, but it is special. Marvelous verdict. So what happened to Mortal Kombat Conquest? It dared. It dared to do something no one was doing. It dared to be ambitious on a small budget. It dared to build a loyal fan base. And then it vanished without resolving any of the storylines it introduced after a budgetary heartbreak. It's forgotten by the mainstream, yes, but never by the fans. It's still one of the boldest and weirdest TV experiments in adaptation history. Conquest fought the tournament of TV networks and syndication with honor, and even if it didn't win, much like Kung Lao himself, it made a mark. And Conquest will always be remembered, for it conquered our hearts. Let us know what you guys think about Mortal Kombat Conquest down below. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye! And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one. Be safe. Thanks, everyone.